Good afternoon. Welcome to the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce Member Connections. Each week, we bring to you our members to tell their story about their professional development and also their career. Today, we have a very special guest that I'm excited to get to interview and speak to today, so that you can learn more about some of our members. But before I start, I want to let you know that this program is sponsored by the Miami-Dade College, one of America's largest institutions for college and professional development here. So I want to thank Miami-Dade College for bringing us to you. And with that, let's bring up our guest for today, Marilyn Holifield, partner at Holland & Knight. Good morning or good afternoon, Marilyn. How are you today? What brings a smile on your face today?
Oh, good morning. I just have to tell you that I am just so full of joy because I know that this morning begins the interview process with senators of the United States Congress of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, the first Black woman nominee to serve as a justice on the United States Court of Appeal, United States Supreme Court.
Yes.
She currently serves on the appellate court, but she is a nominee to serve on the United States Supreme Court, the highest court in the land. And on top of that, she grew up in Miami. She went to public school in Miami, and I've had the great pleasure of serving with her on committees in connection with her service on the Harvard Board of Overseers. And I am just totally full of joy that we in Miami, we in our country, we in our state can celebrate that Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is the nominee to fill the next open seat on the United States Supreme Court.
That's what I'm talking about. Let's start with historical moment. I love it. And you know what? As a lawyer that practices here, that also is a Harvard Law School graduate, well, what would you say is the importance of her being nominated? Why is it important? What makes it significant from your perspective?
That court has been in existence 238 years. Never before in the history has one Black woman ever been nominated, much less one Black woman as Judge Jackson is going around today meeting senators. No other Black woman has had the opportunity to be interviewed by senators for the United States Supreme Court. It is significant because it is the highest court in the land. It is the court that makes decisions that affect our daily lives. And just to take it back in history, this is the same court that said that Black people were not equal to white people, that said that Black people had no rights that any white person should or needed to respect. And now, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson will be making history to sit on that very, if she is confirmed, and we are hoping and praying that she is confirmed. But if she is confirmed, she will be sitting as an associate justice on that very same court.
Very, very powerful. Very important because the Supreme Court of the United States has literally wrote and interpreted the laws of this nation since its existence. And those interpretations and those laws have a huge impact on our lives as people of color and Black people in particular here in America. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what she brings to the table if she is selected as the next Supreme Court justice. So, with that, in this law field, as we just laid out with this opening foundation, law has had a particular effect on how we live and develop as Black and Brown people here in the United States of America. What made you get into law in the first place?
I'm not sure. I could say that when my mother rushed home one day and I was a teenager, and she rushed home and talked about how, in the same way that Judge Jackson talked about Judge Constance Baker Motley, Judge Motley was the first Black female to become a federal judge in this country. And she was working for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. I later worked for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. And she argued the school segregation cases in Tallahassee, Florida, where I was born and grew up. And my mother rushed home to tell me that this Black female judge entered that courtroom with presence and she commanded the court. She advocated as if she were in charge of that court and pressed the right of Black people to have equal access to education in Tallahassee, Florida. I don't know if that moment with my mom inspired me to become a lawyer, because at the time I wasn't thinking about what my career would be. I didn't know what I wanted to be. But ultimately, with encouragement from one of my older brothers, I did decide to apply to law school. And I did, with his encouragement, understand that the law could be used to enforce rights, the law could be used to open doors, and the law could be used to make our lives better and to make our country a better country.
All right. So, what particular forms law is a very huge field of specializations. What particular form of law do you work in and specialize in?
Well, in my career, I've done quite a, I've been involved in a variety of areas in the practice of law. I started out as a civil rights lawyer with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund in New York. I then worked for the state of New York as a general counsel for the New York Division for Youth, which was a law enforcement agency. And then I came back to Florida and I clerked for a federal judge at the appellate level. And then, because I wanted to know what was going on and why people said it was impossible, and really it was at the point of one of my one of the guys that I had grown up with, and I was in Tallahassee talking with him, and he said, "Well, what's a well-educated woman like you going to do in Florida?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, but I'm going to try." And he said, "Well, Florida doesn't really want you. You went to this high-powered college. You went to Harvard Law School. There's no place for you here." And I said, "Okay, well, I'm going to see." And so I decided to see if I could join one of the major law firms in Florida. Not so much because in today's world, people have heavy student debt and they want to go to a big law firm and make partner and make a whole lot of money. I wanted to see what was on the other side of that door, see why everybody said no Black person could be successful, see why my friend whom I had grown up with had said there was no place for me. And I said, "Well, I'm going to go see." And I did get my fair share of rejections, but ultimately I joined Holland and Knight.
Oh,
And as a result of joining Holland and Knight, it was not easy, but my practice evolved over the years from a general business practice. I practice antitrust law, I practice securities law, I practice um, products liability law. I used to joke with myself because I didn't have anyone to talk to that every time I would get more or less comfortable in one area of law, they would say, "Oh, you need to go to another area." And it was like, I thought it was, I thought it was punishment in a way, but in a way, it really equipped me to feel that there was no area of practice that I couldn't bone up on and become an effective lawyer. But it was a hard way. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody else, but I ended up focusing on covenants not to compete and enforcing covenants not to compete or defending against the enforcement of covenants not to compete. And what are those? Sometimes when people work for companies require employees to sign contracts that say, you will not compete with our company after you leave us, or you will not work in the same area of specialty after you leave us, or you will not disclose our confidential trade secrets or confidential internal business proprietary information. And so most of that work was, while it's the employee that signed the contract, it was mostly work between two companies that were fighting over whether an employee had disclosed trade secrets or whether that employee violated the covenant by joining a competitor.
Okay. So one of the things that I hear in the law field, I'm not a lawyer or been in law, this goal of becoming a partner. What does it mean to be a partner at a law firm? And what would you say led to you accomplishing such an amazing feat?
In fact, that's what I wanted to find out when I went to join a major law firm that turned out to be Hollins and Knight. And there have been all kinds of myths about why Blacks are generally not successful in big law firms. And I discovered that it's not a question of talent, it's not a question of skill, it's not a question of which law school you went to, but it's a question of whether you have relationships with businesses or people who make decisions, who will decide to refer business to you. And when Black lawyers, typically when I entered the big law firm, Black lawyers did not have access to people who made decisions about hiring corporate lawyers. And as a result of not having that access, Black lawyers could not generate the business, could not meet that business generation requirement, or could not reach the what they call origination requirements that would allow them to thrive and survive even as a partner. It's over the years, the National Bar Association and the American Bar Association and the various bar associations have made inroads into expanding the networks, and corporate law departments have become more diverse so that there are more opportunities for Black lawyers to have access to in-house lawyers who make decisions about where they're going to refer corporate business. It's still not easy. The playing field is still not level, but one of the biggest barriers to minorities, Black people in particular, being successful in the big law arena is the requirement that you have to generate business.
At the end of the day, we are here in America, and we are a capitalistic country, and it is important to generate profit and business. That's what we are here at the Miami-Dade Chamber, an organization of businesses. But one thing you did mention that led to the generation of business is relationships. And we know that many times community involvements and things you do outside of work are critical to developing those relationships. So, can you tell us a little bit about some of your community involvements you had throughout life and how they have contributed to your professional development?
I am most fond of when I first came to Miami and I joined the board of directors of the Equal Opportunity Family Health Center located at Northwest 22nd Avenue and 54th Street, across from the Caleb building. And that was an organization that provided primary health care services to people back then in Liberty City. And it served at that time about 55,000 people. It was a major economic engine for Black people that served Black people. And out of that experience, I I learned so many things about the different ways that you can serve your community and the different ways that you can acknowledge and respect the humanity of Black people in ways that white America doesn't oftentimes or typically does not. And I would say that my experience, not only serving on the board, but serving as the board chair at the Equal Opportunity Family Health Center in Liberty City, created a foundation for me to understand the importance of community involvement, relationships, and even now, circling back, I'm working on creating a museum of contemporary art of the African diaspora. Well, one of our esteemed board members was a board member on the Community Health Center board way, way, way back in the day when I first came to Miami, and he honored us with accepting our invitation to join our board. That's Dr. Nelson Adams, who is a Miami native and really a pillar of our community. And so you never know how you will build a relationship back in the day, and then fast forward to the future, that relationship comes back into your orbit.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's amazing. But your involvement in the community didn't just coming to Miami. You were pretty involved, even in college. So much so that you even wrote a book about your experiences. Can you tell us a little bit more about your book and also the activism that was around the time when you were there at college?
Well, thank you. I love opportunities to talk about the collective effort of seven sisters and a brother. The title of our book is Seven Sisters and a Brother: Friendship, Resistance, and Untold Truths About Black Student Activism in the 1960s. Hard to believe, but it was a little more than 50 years ago when eight of us decided that something had to change at Swarthmore College. Swarthmore is a small liberal arts college with a huge endowment. So it's one of the wealthier elite colleges in the country, always ranked as somewhere between number 1 and 3 in the nation as a small college. We were entering our senior year, and we had been negotiating with the college for several years about the lack of Black students, the lack of Black faculty, the lack of a Black studies program. And we were entering our senior year, September 1969. And when we returned to campus, we saw that the number of Black freshmen had decreased by 50%. The college was going in the wrong direction. We also ran into another problem with the college. The college, and we don't know to this day why the college did this. The college prepared a report, and the report contained very private information about our family our family, our parents' marital status, our family income, our SAT scores, our grades, just very private information. And the college said, "Oh, it's okay to put it in the library so that our peers and professors could see this information." And we demanded that the college remove that information because the number of students was Black students was so small that you could figure out who they were talking about. You could figure out whose mom was married, or whose mom was whose parents were living together, or who was it that whose whose SAT score was what. And the college refused. And the combination of circumstances made it such that we felt that we had to do something. And we decided to occupy the admissions office.
Oh, wow.
And so later, we decided that we needed to take charge of the narrative around that important Black history at Swarthmore College because our story had never been told. The media had not been accurate with the story. And the story was getting lost in the shuffle of history and the fading of memories. And we decided that we needed to come together once again, saddle up once again, and in our collaborative spirit of how we operated back in the 60s, we shared our stories among ourselves and we collectively collaborated to write this part history, part memoir of the 8 students who were at the heart of the student sit-in at Swarthmore College in January of 1969.
Oh, that is an amazing story, man. How did that activism make you into who you are today?
My activism starts with my parents and my family. And I grew up in the 60s, so I'm a child of the 60s. And my parents were very involved in the community. My parents were supporters of the civil rights movement in Tallahassee, Florida. Few people know it, but back in the 50s, there was a bus boycott in Tallahassee, and many students were arrested. And the Florida A&M students were the vanguard of many of the civil rights protests. In fact, a Mrs. Patricia Dew, who's no longer with us, but her husband, John Dew, is still with us. They were leaders in that civil rights movement back in the 50s and 60s. And Dr. Ben Cowan, who is working with our museum working group, he was one of the student leaders of the civil rights movement back in Tallahassee. So it didn't just start overnight. And I was inspired by Dr. King. I was inspired by probably Judge Constance Baker Motley arguing the school desegregation cases. And I was one of 3 students, Black students, who desegregated the Leon High School in Tallahassee, Florida. And in our book, we each have a chapter that tells about our personal story and autobiography. And my chapter deals with some of my experiences at Leon High School. And I believe those experiences inspired me to understand that change is hard, that racism is real, that hatred is something that we may not understand, but is here. And struggle against racism and racial hatred and inequality is a struggle that will probably need to be carried out for many, many generations to come.
Definitely. Your personal story and your experiences, your growth and development literally is Black history in the making. Um, and as a young man growing up here in this community, it is an honor to know you, to see your growth and to see how you're making an impact here in Miami-Dade County through your work and through your development. As you touch on a lot of areas, I know we've only been able to talk about a few things, but your involvement with Opalaka CDC and the contemporary art and just the art field, there's so many areas in which you have been impactful, and it's just amazing to hear that this all started way back from your childhood. And there's a continuous line connecting all these dots to make you who you are. So thank you for joining us today. I do want to ask one last question. Why did you become a member of the chamber? Why is it important to be a member of Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce?
Well, it's always important to be a member of an organization that seeks to connect people, that seeks to give opportunities for people to build relationships, that seeks to give opportunities for people to understand that there are successes among us, and to give us that opportunity to know more and to be much better than we are alone, because we are so much stronger together. I want to, if I may, just talk about one continuing part of our struggle at Swarthmore College, which is a pin in the notion. It relates to supporting Black organizations, but it also relates to supporting the building of institutions like the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce. We are donating the proceeds of the sales of our book and any honoraria that we give to a fund that we have established at the college. It is the Seven Sisters and a Brother Black Studies Fund. And just recently, we decided that, and it's accelerated in the light of all the effort to ban Black history from schools and to ban books, we decided to undertake an effort to endow that fund so that it would remind the college and inspire the college in perpetuity to support Black studies. And it would also potentially inspire the college to understand that its work is not yet done. Our work as a community, as a people, is not yet done, but the work of the college is not yet done. And we want our fund to inspire the college in perpetuity that it needs to establish a Black Studies department and elevate its Black Studies program to the department level. So I wanted to give a shout out to the generosity of my co-authors for staking a claim in Black philanthropy to support an endowed fund that would inspire the college in perpetuity to elevate Black studies to a department.
That is music to my ears. And I hope for all those watching, you really take heed. I myself was an African American Studies major at Morehouse, and at the time we were a program within the history department. And through the leadership of Dr. Marcellus Barksdale, we became an actual department. And it lays the foundation for what makes us and tells our story. And very few institutions have that as a foundation of educating the next generation of leaders and professionals. So having that department that has the resource that bring in the professors to educate new generation of students that can concentrate in Black studies, African American studies, or Africana studies, whatever you want to call it. We want to make sure that our story is being told. So thank you for writing Seven Sisters and a Brother. Friendship, Resistance, and the Untold Truths Behind Black Student Activism in the 1960s, for creating that fund to make sure that it is going to be a part of discussion and a practice of the institution, one of the top private institutions in America, that they have a specialization in African American studies. So thank you so much for your work and for taking the time to join us today. It has been an honor to interview you and take this time. So look forward to working with you even further. Any last words before we go?
I want to say that I am deeply honored to be on this program, and I am thankful for the opportunity to talk about my life, but more importantly, to talk about the collective effort of my schoolmates that resulted in our taking charge of our story and encouraging other people to take charge of their story. Every story is important. And the one final thing, this book is available on Amazon in hardcover. The paperback was just released, so you may get it in paperback. It's on Audible and it's also on Kindle. So thank you very much.
Make sure you check out that book. This is one of our members, longtime member of the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce, and we support and honor her work in this community and also the book, Seven Sisters and Her Brother. Check it out on Amazon and come back to us every Monday at 12 o'clock here at the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce. We have a few events coming up. Our small business meetup every Tuesday at 4 o'clock. If you're interested in meeting with other business owners on Zoom, feel free to take some time out of your day on Tuesdays at 4 o'clock to join us. And next week, we'll be having our technical assistance workshop called the ABCs of Business, Tips for Starting Your Business. So look for more. Visit our website, www.m-dcc.org. Go to our events to learn more about our events. And also want to shout out our sponsor, Miami-Dade College, for hosting and being a part of this series of interviews. Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you. Thank you, Ms. Holifield.